Welcome, everybody. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes, midday on the dot in the UK. And whilst you're waiting, maybe you can drop into the chat where you are from in this lovely world. Where in the world are you? So drop in your name and where you're from. We've got Southern California as winning, very early in the morning. So welcome from Southern California, crack of dawn. See if we've got anyone from further away than that. How many of you understand the importance of resilience, that agree that it's important to develop and increase our resilience? Okay, I'm seeing a few virtual hands going up, agreeing with that statement. How many of you are interested in becoming more resilient, that feel that it's something that is crucial? Okay, again, many hands going up. And how of you don't know about resilience and not really that bothered to learn how to become more resilient? Okay, we're not seeing quite so many hands going up. This is good. It means you're all in the right place. Oh, someone's saying they can't hear. Hopefully everyone else can hear me. Can you just put a thumbs up if you can hear me? Yeah, everyone hear me okay? Great, fantastic. That's good. So by the very fact that you are here, I am assuming that you are hoping to learn how to increase your resilience, why it's important, and what steps that we can take to do something about it. Just before we get started, I just want to flag up this session is being recorded. The purpose of the recording, if for any reason you aren't able to stay for the whole session, or there's people that had registered and weren't able to attend live, we will be sharing the recording after the session. If there is anything that comes out in this session that is of an extremely sensitive or of an extremely personal nature, or anything that presents a safeguarding issue, that will be edited out before we share the recording. So it's just so people that want to be here that for whatever reason can't, or be here for the whole duration, will still have access to the information. Who am I? My name is Neil Shah. I'm the Chief De-Stressing Officer at the Stress Management Society and the Chief Insights Officer at International Wellbeing Insights. We've been around for now 21 years. We came into existence with a vision to create a happier, healthier, more resilient world. However, interestingly, it feels like we seem to be further away from that goal today than we were ever before. So we still have some work left to do. And part of the challenge is the world seems to be becoming more demanding and more challenging day by day. It feels like we're going from one trauma, one extremely difficult experience to another, whether that be health issues like the pandemic, to economic challenges, to political challenges, to wars, to climate change, and the list goes on. And many people are just feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. And that in itself is one of the key things that we need to tackle, is what is what is the best ways for us to ensure that we're best equipped to cope with the ever-increasing challenges and demands of modern life. I'm seeing a few people that have had issues with sound. If you do have any issues or need any support, if you drop a message in, my colleague Catherine, give us a wave. My lovely colleague Catherine is here to help and support in any ways that are required. So what is today about? How many of you are attending one of our monthly webinars for the first time? Who is a newbie here today? Okay, great. We've got several first timers. So What's different about our sessions is this isn't a webinar. As much as it's called a webinar, it's not actually a webinar. It's a workshop. So as much as there's quite a few of us here today, we normally end up with 400 or 500 people that join these sessions. I think we've already up to about 250 today. That this isn't me and Catherine talking at you or to you for an hour. This is an interactive session. So get involved. We're encouraging you to put your cameras on. It's so easy to turn up to these kind of sessions and expect to be just listening to someone talking whilst you do something else in the background, like eat your lunch or carry on writing that report. This is an interactive two-way discussion. So please get involved. Be present, show up. There will be opportunities for you to even come on the microphone and share thoughts, feelings, perspectives. This is your session as much as it is ours. So, participate. We need to hear from you. This only works if you guys get involved. Ask questions, share your experiences, disagree with us, seek clarification. Tell me to slow down. I can get excited sometimes and I might start speaking very quickly. I am from London, and that can happen. So, whatever you need anytime, please feel free to get involved. There's kind of the chat function where Catherine will be able to respond to your messages and give you the support you need and answer any questions, but also you have the ability to jump onto your microphone and cameras as well. So there is some ground rules that we have put in place just to ensure that this is a safe space for us to explore what is essentially quite a sensitive discussion. There's some of the things and themes that we'll explore can be uncomfortable. So we put some ground rules in place just to ensure that we're all on the same page. So be present. It's a very short session. We've got a very big subject to cover. So be as present as you can. Limit any other distractions. So if you've got any sort of other devices, screens that are likely to buzz, bleep, ring, or vibrate, I encourage you to, if you can, switch them off or at least put them on to silent. Participate. What you put in over the next hour will determine what you take out. If you sit there passively, say nothing, do nothing, don't get involved, it will limit the benefit and the value you get from today's session. Hi, now I've got lots of faces. That's lovely. It's so much nicer than seeing initials on a screen. So it actually makes it feel like we're human beings having conversations with other real human beings. Openness, honesty, and respect. What I mean by that is this is a safe space. If there's something that you'd like to share, this is safe for you to do that in this space. If someone shares something you don't agree with or doesn't resonate with you, that's absolutely okay. Let them have their perspective and you have yours. Have an open mind to different ideas, different perspectives, different ways of looking at things. Confidentiality. So what we're going to ask is anything that is shared in this space, particularly that of a personal nature, is not shared outside of this space. As I mentioned, it is recorded, but we will be editing out anything of an extremely sensitive or personal nature. The only caveat to confidentiality is anything that myself or Catherine share, you have our full permission to share that with anyone that is willing to listen. And the only other caveat to safeguarding is if there's anything that's shared in this session that affects your safety or the safety of others, that is the only other times that the confidentiality will be taken out of this space. Are we all happy to agree to the ground rules and anything you want to add or change to the ground rules we have? Great, fantastic. Okay, so we are here to talk about resilience. What does resilience mean to you? Actual question, not a rhetorical one. So I want to hear from you. What does resilience mean to you? Again, feel free to jump on to the mic. You can put your hands up if you want to be unmuted or unmute yourself, or drop it into the chat. When you think of a time when you've had to be resilient, what is it that you did? What came up for you? What kind of things come to mind when you think of resilience or a resilient person? Okay, I've got a few hands up. So let me just get the list. Kerry Ann, is there something you'd like to share? And then we've got Emily after you.
Oh, sorry, I think I did that by accident, but I was actually just typing in the chat. It was someone who can take knocks and be able to bounce back.
Okay,
and still be positive as well.
Absolutely. So take knocks, bounce back, and still be positive. Okay, that's good. Fantastic. Who have we got next? Suzanne Tomlinson. What does resilience mean to you?
Yeah, I'm on mute. I'm determined. I got put down.
Okay. Yeah, determined. And is there anything you'd want to add to that or elaborate? What does that mean to you to be determined?
To get something done, to make sure that it's done properly, and or if you've got to do something, you have to do it well, and make sure you do it, or anybody else and everybody else does it as well if they have to.
Excellent, thank you.
Get the job done.
Get the job done. I like that. And Neve Gilmore. We've got Bevelyn next on the list, and Louise. But either of you two have something to share?
I'm meant to be listening to resilience, but I'm not sure I can. And they'll send you.
It's how you recover from disappointments.
Recovering from disappointments. Yeah, excellent. And can anyone offer an example of either when you've observed resilience in others or you've had to step up to be resilient? So any experiences that you've had where you can offer kind of an example of resilience in practice? So I've got Louise, Elaine, you've got your hands up. Lorraine Merritt.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Probably one of the biggest resilience I had to show was when I lost my partner to cancer at the same time as managing somebody that was terminally ill at work and then having to support them through the last stages. So yes, I had to show a great deal of resilience at that point.
And absolutely. And, when we have those kind of challenges, you find that we're under massive pressure. The demand that's being placed on us is excessive. For me, it's the ability to find the resources and the ability to be able to cope with extra and extraordinary pressures and demands, like losing a loved one, like obviously managing someone that is in a poorly state as well. So our definition of resilience is our ability to withstand and recover quickly from life's challenges and difficulties. It's not that we don't face challenges and difficulties. When we're resilient, we face them, and yes, they're still going to have an impact, but we don't get stuck in that impact. Does that make sense? It's not like that we get trapped by an impermanent experience. So let me kind of explain that in a little bit more detail. So there's the universal law of impermanence. Everything in this universe is temporary. If you are having the most challenging of days, that day will end, right? At some point, the day will end and a better day is going to follow. You could be having the most incredible, wonderful, beautiful day, but also that day will ultimately end and a more challenging day will follow. It is grey and it's been raining outside. Eventually, the clouds will part and the sun will shine. But it could be the most beautiful sunny of days, but eventually that will end and a more, not so pleasant day will follow. Resilience is where when things are not as we would like them to be, for whatever reason, we're able to withstand and recover from things not being desirable and not get so affected by it. Now, how many of you would agree that there are times where you could have a grey and miserable day outside, which makes you sad or upset or frustrated, but even though eventually when the clouds are parted and the blue skies have come through, there are people that potentially might still feel miserable, right? Because they've been impacted by that initial event of the grey clouds and the misery. And even when the circumstances change, their mental and emotional state doesn't. How many can relate to what I'm talking about? Yeah. So what I'm saying here, resilience is when the circumstances change, it's like, okay, right, I'm able to recover from being compromised by that challenge. Now, for example, a loss of a loved one is a great kind of point for us to explore. If it's someone you care about and you've lost them, yes, obviously there's going to be an emotional impact. And there's a grieving process where there is no right and wrong in terms of how long that should take. And for some people, that could be days, weeks, months. For some people, it could be years, decades. Some people might never recover. For me, the sign of progress in building emotional strength and resilience is when something happens, we're able to get ourselves back to a state of balance as quickly as possible. And that quickly as possible will vary from person to person, to experience, but also you yourself might react and respond to a similar situation differently at different points in your life. But the key thing is, the more we develop our resilience, the quicker we're going to bounce back. In the same way, people that are physically fit, when they do exercise that raises their heart rate, a key sign of physical fitness is how quickly your heart rate recovers to normal. Yeah, how many would agree with that statement? So the fitter you are, even if you're running up the stairs, you've done a sprint, you've done some, high intensity exercise, if you're physically fit, your heart will recover, right? Because your heart has resilience, you are physically fit. For me, emotional fitness is when something has happened to raise your stress levels, to create anxiety, that's challenged you, that you are able to recover as quickly as possible, just like from a physical perspective, your heart will be able to return to its normal kind of operating state quite quickly. So there's kind of two ways to look at resilience. There's reactive resilience. So reactive is where you bounce back, you adapt to challenges after they've already happened. So I've had a challenge and you've found ways to cope, recover, and move forward. Who can offer me an example of reactive resilience? So it's something's happened, you've not been thinking about it like, oh, if something happens, how will I get myself back? But you've then found tools, strategies, maybe you undertook some counseling, you started meditating, you took up yoga, or you did something as a response to going through a tough and challenging time. So who has some examples of reactive resilience? So Nigel Martin, you've got your hand up. And I've got Gwen Rowan next. Go for it, Nigel, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Hello. So the way I see reactive resilience is you've got to do the job. You could choose to do it with stress or without. It's a conscious choice we make. The job still gets done with the stress or without. Just don't own the stress if you can.
Absolutely. So Nigel, if you had a period of stress or something challenging happen, what would you do to cope, recover, and bounce back? What kind of are your go-to activities?
I like music. I can lose myself in music for a little while, or go for a walk in the countryside. Any of them.
Okay, so yeah, put on some music, lose yourself in the music, go for a walk in the countryside, connect with nature. Amazing. Gwen Rowan, what would be your examples of reactive resilience?
Sure. So I had a major life event, 21, a significant health condition I have got worse. I was off sick and housebound for about 6 months. It was quite a difficult time. And obviously, for people to just say, oh, be positive, get over it, is not helpful. I recognised that I needed to make changes to my own lifestyle for my health and well-being. So I undertook things like yoga and Tai Chi and meditation, all of which are easily learned at home. You don't need to go out to do things like that. And obviously now I'm feeling a lot better. I'm able to get out in nature in the countryside. But I do think there is something in this country about people are not comfortable with negative and difficult emotions, and they tend to criticize the person experiencing them, which I must admit I do get quite angry when I see that happening.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I think it's because it's frightening. It's a reflection of our own mortality, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And I think also beyond that, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, but my opinion is also that people are so uncomfortable, it's easy to project out rather than look at, if someone's going through a tough time, that's bringing up stuff within us that we're uncomfortable with. So rather than looking at what we're experiencing and our discomfort, it's easy to look at how we can either reject or avoid the person that is bringing that uncomfortable feeling to us. Does that make sense?
Most definitely, and I certainly experienced that from a work environment as well. So I'm now turning that around as a positive and trying to work with some of our staff networks to improve that employee experience as well, because I've felt that. I know what it looks like and I can challenge it now. Fantastic,
thank you. Jack McNamara, have you got any examples of reactive resilience?
Yeah, I suppose not kind of personal, but I just think it's worth mentioning kind of the biggest event that everyone in this session had to be resilient over, and it's COVID. Obviously when COVID hit and we all went into lockdown, everybody in this webinar, I imagine, probably faced the most unknown future that they had ever kind of come across at that time. We are all personal people, and I just thought it'd be worth kind of mentioning that all of us were resilient enough during that period. We all had different methods of getting through it. I kind of made an active attempt to speak to my friends more, instead of being able to just meet up out of nowhere. You actually put the effort in to keep communication going, and then obviously looking online for kind of stress techniques and how to keep myself centered, I suppose. But yeah, I just think it's something that feels so long ago, but something that we all had to deal with, which was the biggest resilience test the country's had for quite a while, I'd be willing to say.
And Jack, I would agree with you. The only bit I'm not necessarily going to agree with you is not everybody found the way to be resilient. And obviously now we're seeing the data and the after effects, the amount of people that weren't resilient and suffered, and sadly many of them aren't with us anymore. What that's for me is one of the concerns. Is we should have been really having a strong conversation around resilience at the time, but obviously it was sidelined by.
Totally agree.
Let's focus on this issue without understanding actually our focus on this issue is actually creating a whole host of other issues which we will be dealing with for quite a long time, and the mental and emotional effects is one of them. So this is why it's ultra important that we are doubling down on this conversation, because there are people, particularly young people, that are still suffering the after effects of what happened 3 or 4 years ago. And unless we are bringing this conversation front and center, it's going to get worse, not better. And here's the challenge. We had round-the-clock counters during COVID for cases of COVID. We didn't have, and we still don't have, round-the-clock counters for mental health cases or deaths. If we did, I think we might rethink our approach to society, because suicide is the main cause of death for a man under the age of 45 in Western society, not just in Britain. It is one of the key causes of death for 15 to 29-year-old on the planet, and yet we don't have this conversation for the same reasons that we've already discussed, as Gwen shared. We're just not comfortable with it, and we tend to focus and take action against the things that we discuss. Would you agree with that? If even though there are issues in society like health or obesity or kind of lifestyle or some of the issues around social media, which has been connected to people's poor mental health, because we don't have those conversations, we're not necessarily taking action against them. So we need to have more of these conversations, so we're all able to relate to the scale of the issue, so we can do something about it. The fact that there is almost 300 of us here today, and people dialing in from not just around the UK but also around the world, means that it is an important conversation. And this is really where we go from reactive resilience, where something happens, we find a way to deal with it. As Jack has highlighted, during COVID, we had to find a way to deal with it. Or you have a life circumstances, you've got to find a way to deal with it, or you're going to suffer. But the second part of the conversation is proactive, is how we're not waiting for something to happen before we increase our resilience. So Sarah, you've got your hand up. I'm going to take yours as the last share for reactive resilience, or anything you want to share at this point before we move on to the next part of the conversation, which is being proactive. Sarah Elton, did you have something to share?
Yeah, some of the conversations about sort of how you find ways to cope. I think when I had a really bad 10 years with losing both my parents, one was very, very quick accident. The other one was long drawn out Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia. And I think, you know, I sort of liken it to sort of going to parties, seeing friends and crying. People do find it really difficult to deal with negative emotions, difficult emotions. When someone asks you how you are, they expect you to say, yeah, I'm good, how are you? But when you turn around and say, well, this happened with my mum, or she's close to death, or, you know, it gets uncomfortable for people. But what I found, and this goes a bit into proactive resilience, was counselling's good. I think somebody put a comment up that there's not enough counsellors and it can take months to get in touch with somebody. But I found it really, really good for my resilience and others to set up my own support group on Facebook and talk to like-minded people, because I think you can hold a bit of anger and resentment against other people, you know, friends of yours whose parents are perfectly fit and healthy and they're not at that stage in life. But it's making sure you connect with the right people. Don't blame your friends when they change the subject or perhaps don't want to see you crying. But it was really good to get in touch with people whose parents also had Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia. And one guy came along and he said, you know, my mum and dad are at home, they're reasonably healthy, but I'm seeing signs of dementia. I'm here to be proactive so that I know what the next stages and next steps are with care homes, care in the home, support groups and things like that. And I thought, you know what, fair play to you. You've actively joined our group, seen it advertised locally on Facebook, and you want to come and talk and see what your challenges will be forward. So I think it's not just about sort of having friends, it's having the right people around you that will listen and are, you know, taking the same path as you at this time, whatever the issue may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think that's crucial, having that support network, because we are more resilient when we don't feel all alone and isolated. Would you agree with that? And that's one of the things that happened, particularly, like, you know, we talked about COVID as an example, where, you know, it's our ability to rally, to come together, is how can we collectively find solutions to the challenges that we're facing. And the challenges that many of us live in societies and communities where people can feel all alone and isolated. I live in London. We recently won an award. London has been voted the loneliest city in the world. I'm not proud of that. There's 8 million people that live in London. You're very rarely alone, but people feel lonelier than ever. What's the difference between the two? Alone is there is no one around. Lonely is, alone is a physical, there's no one around. Lonely is I don't have meaningful connections. You can be surrounded by people and feel totally isolated. You could be by yourself up atop a mountain and feel totally connected. Can everyone relate to that? And do we also agree that the past 3 or 4 years, people are living more and more individualized, separated existences? As Jack was saying, like, we need people around us, community. And it's great that we're all here on this call, but our life, for many of us, has been reduced to Zoom, Skype and Teams calls rather than in-person interactions. So how do we change that? Because we need social interaction, and that actually helps us to build resilience. You know, in the UK, the pubs were the institution where people would congregate and talk about life, football and anything else that they chose to. And they shut it down faster than you can say, pour me a pint. As our, you know, people are struggling to get flocks into churches, mosques and temples as well. So it's because those kind of institutions where people came together don't seem to hold as much power in the modern world as they did previously, right? So where are people coming together, or are they coming together full stop? So part of this is the first step is the reactive. It's about bouncing back, adapting to challenge or setbacks after they've already happened. So after the fact, so something bad occurs, you react to it by finding ways to cope, recover, and move forward. So essentially, your computer breaks down. This would be the classic. All right, I'm going to take action. I'm going to turn it on, turn it off, back on again. look at, what can I salvage if there's something that, destroyed about the hard drives, and I will take action should something happen in the future. The proactive resilience is taking steps beforehand to anticipate, mitigate, or even prevent potential challenges. That involves, as I said, like you're thinking about what am I going to need to do to cope with the world that I find myself in, with the life and the challenges that I'm facing. It's about building up resources, skills, support systems to handle whatever comes your way. Now, as I said, like the world we live in feels like an episode of Black Mirror. For those who've attended our sessions before, you'd have heard me use that analogy before. You literally couldn't make up the script. I have no idea what's going to happen next. Aliens attack, asteroids, it could be anything. And as much as that sounds ridiculous, is it any more ridiculous than what's already happened over the last few years? So what I'm saying is, if you haven't started to build resilience, I'd encourage you to start taking action to consider what you can do now, because I'd love to believe that things are going to get easier and smoother and everyone's going to live in happiness and harmony. But the path recently isn't suggesting that that's the case. And I'm an optimist. I believe that things will get better eventually, but we're going to have to learn to make things better. It won't just happen without our interaction and our input. So proactive resilience is where we can individually and collectively start taking action to better equip us to cope us with challenges before they happen. So this isn't reacting and responding to challenge. This is like, I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to wait until I need to carry a heavy load to build my muscles. I'm going to build my muscles in the eventuality I might need to carry a heavier load. Does that make sense? Even though there is no load right now. Who can share some examples of proactive resilience where you're thinking ahead, you're taking action just so you are prepared? Lots of hands going up. Louise, I've got your hand up first. And then we've got Julie Saunders next. Louise, you there? Go to Julie Saunders.
Hello, everyone. I know you just asked what action we have to take, but my hand was up, not because of that, Neil,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah,
You did say, you did say something that I would like to challenge a bit.
Please.
Okay. Without offense, you said we need people to build resilience. Is that correct?
No, what I'm saying is it's just reflecting some of the comments here that we're human beings, we are social creatures. And, part of our ability to feel resilient is our connection to our friends, our family, our community. Now, let me kind of quantify that statement. There is a clear correlation between the degradation of community over the last 40 and 50 years and the increase in mental health issues and suicidality. There's also been research done on the blue zones, areas in the world where people typically live longer than anywhere else on the planet. And there are some key factors. There's actually a documentary on Netflix, I believe, around this. And one of the key factors of this is this diet, lifestyle. There's a whole variety of things. But one of the key components is community. People that live in a sense of community, that have people that can rely on and can rely on them, tend to have better health and live longer and happier as well. So what I'm saying is we can draw a lot of resilience by feeling a part of something. People that are in relationships and have families tend to live longer. So there's a lot of data and evidence to suggest that we can draw resilience by feeling like we're part of something compared to when we're feeling alone and isolated. In the UK, for example, loneliness has now been recognised as a mental health illness, and we actually have a government minister for loneliness. Chronic loneliness is actually recognised as a mental health issue. So what I'm saying is that there is enough evidence to suggest that people that have a support network and a sense of community tend to be more resilient.
Okay, got it. But my thing is, I might be wrong, and if I'm wrong, please forgive me. We do need people. We do need a community, but I do believe for one to really find oneself, this is something one have to do by themselves. And that is looking inward. And you can only do that when you are on your own. If you're surrounded by people and people talking and talking and talking, it is really hard for you to study yourself as a person. Sometimes it's good to be on our own, to study ourselves, to know ourselves really well.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. I think we might be talking about two different things. So, you know, studying ourselves and kind of a spiritual introspection and resilience. You know, spiritual introspection and kind of understanding and knowing yourself and building a relationship with yourself could improve or increase your resilience. But these are two separate things, if that makes sense. The self-awareness can obviously promote resilience, but when we're talking about resilience as a theme, you know, when we are holding each other accountable and supporting each other, we'll find that actually kind of the resilience bar of a community or a group of people will raise.
I do think resilience is a character, is a virtue. And character is something that one have to have. You don't need people to give you your character.
Yeah,
people are there to support you.
I take on board your comments. I guess my belief is that anyone can nurture resilience. It's not something that we are born with. This is very much nurture, not nature. So what does everybody else think? What's everyone else's thoughts on this? Has anyone got any sort of feedback on Julie's comments? Okay, Yvette, got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I think I sort of understand what Julie's talking about. I'm a person who thrives. I love being by myself, and kind of it doesn't bother me whether I see people or not. Do you know what I mean? It's just the way that I am as an individual. But at the same time, yes, it is important for me to have connections, but I don't necessarily rely on those connections in order for me to, I don't know, kind of like feel like I'm fulfilled or anything like that.
Sure.
But at the same time, so I do. I think you're right. It is slightly two different things. And I also watched that Blue Zone documentary, which is so interesting. And again, yes, one of the aspects was to have community, and that kind of gives you almost like a drive to have that connection with people, but you don't necessarily rely on that connection with people to kind of be who you are as an individual. So it's half and half.
It's kind of like you've got a safety net when you're walking the tightrope. You're not relying on it, but it's useful to have it there should you fall off the rope, right?
Yeah.
And I would think of it in that way. And I think it gives us confidence to know that there's a safety net, that there are people there to catch us should we fall. It's not that we, when you're walking the tightrope, you don't necessarily need it, but it's when you do need it, you're grateful it's there, kind of like an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So just coming back to proactive resilience, where we are preparing and building our resilience, not because something has happened, but just because it's a useful and valuable thing to do. Who can give me some examples of this? Share some kind of experiences where they have or are currently taking the steps to increase their resilience. Amber, go for it.
Hi. I think for me, it's sort of planning ahead, going into a difficult meeting where there's going to be difficult conversations, and thinking of the potential outcomes and thinking how might they react, and planning on how to deal with them, and how to deal with that situation. Yeah, looking at what the potential outcomes are going to be and plan ahead.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. So considering all the factors and coming up with a plan. So it's actually sitting down and strategizing, so to speak. Sam Foraker. Sam, are you there?
Okay, it's not happening. It's not working very well. Yeah, I've over the last few years, I've been educating myself an awful lot on sort of my issues as such, like with anxiety, depression, and things like that. I've exposed myself gradually to uncomfortable situations, but aware that of the time that I need to take myself out of that situation, that's still okay. So understanding true self and being able to gradually expose myself has built my inner strength and resilience in that kind of way.
Absolutely. And interestingly, Sam, that it sounds like a strange notion, but exposing yourself to challenges and stress purposefully means that when it happens when you weren't expecting it, you're better equipped to cope. What are other examples?
Absolutely.
Sam, can you give me some examples of things that you could do to purposely create stress for yourself? And not necessarily things that you do, but things that we could do.
I decided to go into paediatrics and mental health.
Okay.
So a lot of the situations I find myself currently are quite stressful, depending on patients and things like that. But I also have conversations with people that are in charge, and I will explain to them, I have had X, Y, Z in the past. I'm still trying to cope with it. I'm still trying to deal with it. If I need to remove myself from a situation, is that okay? And 99% of the time, everybody's absolutely fine. But because you're communicating that makes a massive difference. If you just get up and walk out, people go, oh, what's her problem? You know,
yeah.
Just in that communication and being able to connect with people in an outright upfront way that's not emotional, you know, not necessarily emotional, can just make such a difference.
Absolutely. But beyond that, even simple things like, for example, physical activity, you know, going to a yoga class, lifting some heavy weights, going for a run, riding a bike. Would you agree that creates some physical stress in your body, right? But you're in control. You've created that. Yeah.
I started doing kickboxing as a stress to increase my fitness levels. But you know, actually, the stress that it causes me is a relief rather than a horrible stress, if that makes sense.
And also, you'll find that when you're experiencing stress for real, you'll be better equipped to cope with it. Many of you may have noticed that everyone and their mother seems to be doing ice bath challenges at the moment and getting into tubs of freezing cold water. It seems like, you know, everyone everywhere is on it. I've been doing it myself for coming on to a year now. And you're getting in water, well, the water I get into at the moment is about 3 degrees. I promise you, when you get in, you are stressed. It is cold. And people will lead you to believe you get used to it. You don't. You just kind of understand what that feeling is like. And it's still cold and you're still not enjoying it. But those 3-4 minutes of stress every morning means that everything happens for the rest of the day is a little bit easier to cope with. I have put myself into a moment of high stress. My body has reacted with a stress response, but in a controlled way. I'm also in control of when that stress ends as soon as I get out of the water. Does that make sense? So what I'm saying is proactive resilience is I'm preparing and equipping myself to cope with challenge. That could also be, and it doesn't necessarily need to be doing stressful things. It could be meditating. How many of you find that if you do some kind of mindfulness, meditative, go for a walk in nature every day, even if there's nothing stressful going on, when something does happen, you've already got an outlet. You've got kind of, it's like the 3-pin plugs that we use in the UK when you plug something into the socket. The third one is the earth, right? It's taking away excess energy. Does that make sense? I know there are many countries around the world that only have the 2 pins. They don't have the 3rd pin. So if there is a power surge, there's nothing to take away the excess energy. For me, resilience is having something to take away the excess energy, emotional and mental energy of life. Does that make sense? So yes, obviously having tools and strategies to cope when things happen is great, but I think we need to get to the point where we're starting to be proactive about this as well. Both skills are important and both skills are crucial. So how can we build our resilience from within? How can we how can we mitigate the negative effects of stress? How can we stay focused on the goal and avoid getting distracted? Because here's the thing, you know, you can have the best strategy in the world. If I did my perfect morning routine and, you know, I got up and I spent, you know, half an hour journaling, I spent 10 minutes out in the garden doing some grounding exercise, which we'll talk about in a minute. I did some yoga, I went to the gym, did a workout, did some meditation. If I did my perfect morning routine, I wouldn't be finished till 7 o'clock in the evening, right? So it's just not possible for me to do all the things that I know are going to set me up for the day. And also, even if my morning routine only took an hour, when you're stressed, you're tired, and there's other things that take priority, you take your eyes off the prize, right? And you end up getting distracted and not doing the things that you know are good for you. For me, resilience is as important as sleeping, brushing your teeth, and eating. But how can we ensure that it's part of our daily routine? So one of the things that I'm going to encourage, particularly as we are imminently coming into April, where we launched Stress Awareness Month 2024. So that's a campaign we've been running for now 21 years. The theme this year is little by little, a little becomes a lot. You don't need to have the perfect morning routine that takes 9 hours to do. You don't need to do everything. But start by doing one thing. How many would agree when you make a commitment and a decision to do one thing, one good decision can lead to other good decisions? How many would agree with that? An example, let's say you make a decision to go for a 15-minute run every morning or a 15-minute walk every morning. How many would agree that one decision, if you commit to it, can lead to other good decisions? You get back from your run or your walk and you're going to want to drink water because you're going to be a little bit dehydrated. So you're going to increase your water intake. So you now have some exercise. As a result, your water intake's increased. You'll probably be craving more healthy, nutritious foods, right? People that exercise tend to reach for healthier foods. Your mood will be uplifted. So you'll probably be more sociable. You'll be probably more positive because you've had an increase in serotonin and endorphins in your system. So you're in a happier, more positive state. You're going to find that towards the end of the day, you'll be a little bit more tired because you've done physical activity. You'll probably find that your sleep has improved. You get better quality sleep, or maybe sleep for longer. So you'll find that one decision could lead to a host of other really good decisions. Yeah, how many would agree with that statement? But how many would also agree the reverse is true? One bad decision can lead to a host of other bad decisions. How many of you made a bad decision with this device in your hand? Biggest gateway drug on the planet, mobile phone. Scrolling through Instagram and you see some advert for some food or the other, and you decide to get onto Uber Eats and order that food. And you think, oh, I've got a takeaway coming, let me put something on Netflix. I've got the food coming, I've got Netflix on, let me get a glass of wine. And before you know it, one bad decision has led to a whole host of other bad decisions. So this year, for Stress Awareness Month, as I said, the theme is little by little. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. Make one decision, one commitment, and see how that changes everything. And for the purpose of our discussion today, what we're going to encourage you to do is start by having some strong foundations to your resilience. So what I'm going to encourage you all to do is put up scaffolding. So you know when a building is having construction work, they put the scaffolding up whilst they're doing the work on the building. So the scaffolding is holding your building strong. For me, when undertaking any program of building resilience or looking at how we can improve our mental and emotional health, it's really important to have that scaffolding. And for me, that will be done through grounding. So grounding, for many people, feels like a bit of a hippie woo-woo kind of approach, but there's so much science and research on this to show that staying grounded, centered, and focused can prevent both reactive and promote both proactive and reactive resilience. How many of you have ever felt when something stressful happens that you're off balance? Like someone could literally, blow you or push you with a finger, and it will send you, flying because you're not solid in yourself. So grounding helps us to stay focused when challenges arrive. It helps us to stay present. For anyone that's ever practiced martial arts, you'll know that a big part of martial arts or yoga or any of those kind of practices is our ability to be strong, grounded, and present. You have the roots that are coming from the soles of your feet connecting you, so you're not flapping around in the wind, as many of us tend to feel when we are stressed. Grounding is a really good skill for self-regulation and emotional management, stay in tune with your body and your emotions, stay connected with reality. And again, I'm sure many of you would agree that when we are stressed and something challenging has happened, you lose connection with reality and you get lost in your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, right? How many would agree with that statement? And sometimes it's, you need someone to bring you back, like in the movies or the cartoons. It's like someone's kind of freaking out and you might have someone that will slap them. Obviously, we don't slap anyone anymore, but you remember, like in the old movies and the cartoons, they used to do that. It's like, snap out of it. So they're trying to bring them back to reality because they've gone into like a bit of a freak out. Being grounded helps to keep us connected with reality, but it also helps to manage intrusive thoughts, feelings, memories, and gives us that sense of stability and safety and security within ourselves. It's a protective buffer, but it also ensures that you've got time to regulate your emotions before you take any kind of action. Because taking actions from a highly ungrounded emotional state potentially is likely to make the situation worse, not better. And how many of you have ever found that when you're in a highly emotional state, the way you act actually makes things worse, not better? So this is one of the key concepts of resilience, is be grounded, be balanced, be here now, not in your thoughts and emotions, be present to the reality of the moment as it is, and then take action accordingly. So the grounding exercise that we're going to do, a very simple one, and you can do it anywhere, anytime, and you can also do it whilst you're doing something else. And this is just a simple kind of tool that for me is my go-to. It's both a reactive and a proactive resilience technique. Today's session is not necessarily about giving you tools and techniques. It's about getting you to understand why this is important. But I do want to share something with you. So what I'd like you to do is just sit nice and upright in your chairs. You can stand up if that feels more comfortable, but your feet need to be flat on the floor. So that means you need to shuffle a little bit forward in your chair so your feet can be flat on the floor. You might find it helpful if you're wearing shoes to slip them off, but if you're not able to do that, that's also fine, as long as your feet are flat on the floor. And just close your eyes for a second and just visualize there are roots growing out from the soles of our feet. And those roots are getting thicker, going deeper into the earth. The roots are starting to mesh into each other, like the roots of a big, tall, strong oak tree. Think of the strength and the stability that an oak tree would provide. And the roots that are growing out from the soles of your feet are as strong and as thick as that you'd find on a big, tall, strong oak tree, going deeper and deeper into the earth till they get to the very center of the earth. And just feeling your connection with the center of the earth and energy flowing from the center of the earth up through the roots, into the soles of your feet and into your heart. And we take a couple of breaths there, just connecting you. So you're present, connected, solid. Your structure is sound. And every time we breathe in, breathing into the heart, and as we exhale, breathing into the center of the earth, we're creating a very strong connection. We're going to take 2 more breaths like that. 2 breaths, breathing in, grounding energy from the center of the earth, and exhaling our energy back into the center of the earth to create that connection. And the last breath, and after we've taken the last breath, just want you to do a scan. Just check in with yourself. How did it feel just to take a few breaths, 3 or 4 breaths in that way, to allow yourself to be grounded, to be present, to be connected to the earth that we live on? Because when we are stressed, we are ungrounded, we are unconnected, we are literally like a feather flying around in the wind. We're not feeling solid within ourselves. And actually bringing a bit of solidity will massively change how you respond to the circumstances of life. Who'd like to share what came up for you or what you experienced from just taking a couple of breaths to ground? Miko, I can see you've got your hand up. And I think Louise, you've also got your hand up. So if you guys would like to share, and anyone else got anything you'd like to share from that exercise, or the importance or benefit of grounding, particularly those who practice martial arts or yoga, you'll probably have a good base understanding of this. Why is this important in our quest to be more resilient?
I love the grounding, and my experience was that was a really positive little exercise. The grounding is really important because it helps me bring myself back to center. Helps me not be so self-centered. You know, I always, you know, when I go into things, it's like always like a war for me. Like, you have to agree with me. You know, you need to see my side in it. You know, like, I don't want to be wrong. I don't have to be right, but I don't want to be wrong. So grounding helps me go, stop it. You know, everyone's valued. You know, slow down. It's not, you know, yes or no. It's, you know, somewhere in between, and it really helps.
Absolutely. And these are simple things that you can do anywhere, anytime, even whilst you're doing something else. My biggest challenge today is I've got a huge subject of resilience and a tiny amount of time to cover as much as I can. But I wanted to leave you with something, just if nothing else, to pique your interest, something for you to play with. And as we start to incorporate resilience building practices into our daily routine, hopefully that will inspire you to seek out more. Which obviously we will continue to offer in our monthly sessions. But there are many things that you can do to bring yourself back to present. Visualization techniques, mindfulness, earthing, which is, you know, either physically standing barefoot on the earth or imagining yourself connected to the earth. There's sensory grounding techniques where you're kind of counting yourself in and out. Physical activity, as we've spoken about, any form, riding a bike, swimming, running, walking, something that is moving your body. Breathing, again, being connected with your breath. Body scan, so you're kind of just scanning your body from top to bottom to focus on what's real for you right now in your body. Having things like salt baths. There are many different things that you can do to ensure that you have more time to ground. And this is just one aspect of resilience. There are many different things that you can do. And we'll be sharing a lot more over the coming month. As I said, the Stress Awareness Month theme is little by little, a little becomes a lot. We put together a bunch of free resources, which Catherine's going to drop in the links that are on the screen into the chat. So if you go to stress.org.uk/SAM 2024, there's tons of free resources there that you can download and access, share with your friends and colleagues. But also undertake the challenge, make a commitment for 30 days to do something, one thing, whatever that is, and share it on social media, because as you do, you'll encourage others to do the same. Well, the next free webinar will be on the theme of Stress Awareness Month, little by little, a little becomes a lot. That's on the 11th of April. It's about little things that we can do that can bring about massive positive change. So that will be coming up on the 11th of April. Put it in your diaries now. They're always free. Our monthly webinars of workshops are always free of charge. So all you need to do is register to make sure you've got a place confirmed. We've also got Stress Care Protect, which is our new product, which is an online virtual training program you can do in your own time, at your leisure. We've got 2 weeks free access for people that attend our webinars. So if you would like information on that, there is a link in the chat. You need to register for free. We'll send you kind of the access, and you can kind of enjoy that whole program for 2 weeks, absolutely free of charge. If any of you are struggling or feeling particularly compromised, there are resources out there. So you can check out our website, which is stress.org.uk. There's Samaritans if you're feeling particularly emotionally challenged and concerned about whether you want to continue. So that's something to contact. There's Silverline if you are worried about someone older, or you are older yourself and need support, and there's various other resources. This information will all be available on our website as well. And please do remember, we are a non-profit organization. We only are able to continue doing this work through the donations of the people that support us. So anything that you can do to support us is always massively welcome. Beyond that, we have a few minutes left, and I always like to have a couple of minutes at the end. If there's any questions, comments, feedback, anything you want to discuss or share before we finish. So we've got a few minutes left. So what questions, comments, or feedback do you have regarding the session, this subject, or anything else you want to share before we close? If you do have something, you can feel free to unmute yourself, or obviously do put it onto the chat.
I have a question that I'll just quickly jump in and ask. Do you have any personal book recommendations that you've read about resilience that might be helpful for some of us that might want to kind of read? I like reading.
Okay, give me a second. I'm just getting up because I'm actually going to show you the book. And sorry for the shameless plug. but I would recommend the 10-step stress solution, because I know the author quite well, because that author was me. And that was basically the idea behind the book, is things that people can do to increase their resilience. It's called the 10-step stress solution. You can find it in all major bookstores around the world. So I know it's particularly in the UK, Europe, and in the US, it is widely available. So feel free to pick that one up. To add to that, there's obviously, we do find ourselves in a world of information overload. There is a lot of content out there. Power, if you look it up in the dictionary, it quite literally means the ability to do or act. Having lots and lots of knowledge and information doesn't make you powerful. Acting on knowledge and information makes you powerful, right? So what I'm going to encourage you all to consider is, yes, it's good to have knowledge and information, but don't forget that doesn't bring you any benefit if you don't do anything with that. We all know we're supposed to drink 2 liters of water a day, eat 5 bits of fruits and vegetable, sleep 7 or 8 hours a night, walk 10,000 steps. But knowing that information doesn't change your life, right? You have to take action against it. So my challenge to all of you is, if you are bringing in new knowledge and new information, consider what may prevent you from taking action against that, because knowledge without action doesn't bring you any benefit. Does that make sense? Great. I've got a few more hands. Elaine, Jack, get your hands up.
Hi, thanks very much for everything. I've learned a lot. I just wondered, firstly, can we have access to the slides, please? And second to that, I can't seem to save the chat with the links that you provided. Is there any way that I can do that, please?
Catherine, am I correct in saying everyone will get everything, including the links, the slides, and the recording, by email?
Yep, I'll send an email over after the session's finished, with all the links included.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks a million. That's great.
Fantastic. Excellent. Jack, your hand up as well.
Yeah, I know we're kind of at the end of this now. I just was wondering for kind of your opinion on something. I actually deliver a understanding stress training session in my job at the moment. In the company I work for, I am a trainer there. And one of the things we speak about quite a lot, or that seems to get brought up quite a lot in these sessions, is people feeling like, as much as the world has got better at speaking about things like depression and anxiety and a lot of the mental issues, which is fantastic, stress is kind of fell a little bit behind all these in terms of being recognized and being spoken about. I was just wondering, in kind of your professional opinion, have you kind of noticed that as well, and why kind of it's been maybe pushed to the wayside a little bit?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because if you have a period of stress over time, that can have an impact on your mental health, right? And your mental health suffers. And when your mental health has suffered, that potentially could lead to mental illness. But do we also agree, if you have high periods of stress, that could also have an effect on your physical health? Yeah. And when your physical health is compromised, that can lead to physical illness, like the heart disease, cancer, stroke, etc. Right? But it's interesting that we have data to support this, and we recognize that stress impacts not just the way that your body functions, but the way that you feel and you process the world around you. So you could wait until you've got people that have either got poor mental health or poor physical health, or physical illness and mental illness, and then take action. Or we could get to the point where people are compromised and are not functioning at their best and not living their life or have a lifestyle that's supporting their overall well-being. So actually, for me, tackling it as stress is being proactive. Tackling poor mental health or poor physical health, or worse, is being reactive. Does that make sense? And yeah. Sadly, the nature of the world that we live in is everybody wants an answer out of a blister pack, or to buy it off a shelf in a store or off Amazon or wherever, right? Because actually, the taking responsibility and being proactive requires time, effort, and energy in a world which is time poor. So I agree with you, it is important, and which is really why today's conversation about the reactive and proactive. We do live in a reactive world. How can we get people to be a little bit more proactive rather than the instant gratification, which is how we seem to have developed our society, is actually thinking, what do I want my life to look like, and how am I going to take action to create that? What do I want my health to look like? What do I want my society to look like? Rather than, okay, we've got a problem and we're going to try and fix it. Does that make sense? So part of this is to change the nature of the dialogue.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's Yeah, it's always a good opportunity to speak to somebody who knows more about this than I do, because I actually have a session in an hour, and I'll be speaking about everything we've just spoken about in here. So thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Fantastic. Well, it's been really lovely having you all here with us today. We look forward to seeing you next month. You will get an email with all the information that we've shared today, the recording, which you can then share on with colleagues that weren't able to attend or friends that weren't able to attend, as well as obviously information about all the opportunities to interact with us. And if we don't hear from you before, hopefully we'll see you at our next session on the 11th of April. Have a wonderful day, and remember, little by little, a little becomes a lot.
Thank you, Neil. Can I just say one thing before we go, please?
Yeah, of course.
First of all, I like your book. I love your book. It's really good. And
you.
also, thank you for the breathing and the exercise we did today. I just want to say to everyone, hopefully we never take one single breath for granted. It's the first thing we did when we came into this world, and it's the last thing we will do when we leave. Never take a single breath for granted. That's all I want to say.
It's a beautiful message to finish with, and also I'd add to that, it's the one constant companion that is with you in every single second of your life. Yeah, even though it's with you from the very beginning to the very end, it's one of the things that we pay the least amount of attention to. So I agree. Thank you. Amazing. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you again very, very soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.